Welcome to Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. On this week's program, we look at land values in Kansas with Robyn Reid from Kansas State University. She presented her latest findings at the recent Risk Profit Conference on the K-State campus. We'll also have features from the Kansas Soybean Commission, Kansas Department of Agriculture, and Kansas Grain Sorghum, plus the weekly update for the Kansas Livestock Association and market information from Pinion.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farm and ranch families since 1919, kfb.org. And the Kansas Wheat Commission, lending in the adoption of profitable innovations from wheat, online at kswheat.com.
In agriculture news, corn production up, soybean and cotton production down from 2022. That according to USDA's crop production report that was released earlier this week. Corn production up 10% from last year, forecast 15.1 billion bushels. Soybean growers expected to decrease their production 3% from last year, forecast 4.15 billion bushels. And cotton production down 9% from 2022 at 13.1 million 480 pound bales. Planted and harvested estimates for corn, cotton, and soybeans also reviewed based on all available data, including the latest certified acreage data from the Farm Service Agency. As a result, the area planted for corn estimated at 94.9 million acres, up 1 point from the previous estimate. Area planted for soybeans estimated 83.6 million acres, up slightly. And the areas planted for cotton estimated 10.2 million acres, down 8% from the previous estimate. USDA surveyed more than 7,000 producers across the country and conducted objective yield surveys for the report. Well, USDA has awarded nearly $1 million to K-State for a program to lead research and innovation in sorghum production and boosting a crop that's grown more in Kansas than anywhere else in the U.S. Sarah Sexton-Bowser, the director for the Center of Sorghum Improvement at K-State, said the award allows the university to build a network of public and private groups aiming to ease the bottleneck in sorghum technology and develop even better seed traits in the future. Kansas does rank number one in the production of grain sorghum in the U.S. Most years, Kansas farmers grow more than 200 million bushels of the crop, nearly half of all U.S. grain sorghum production. When it comes to dollars, production tops $1.8 billion, including more than $869 million in exports. With this USDA reward, the work will continue at K-State, according to Sexton-Bowser. Some of the early collaborations, the projects include the United Sorghum Checkoff Program, Kansas Grain Sorghum Commission, and private seed companies like the Innovative Seed Solutions and Corteva Agriscience. You can find out more information on the grant and the partnerships working to improve grain sorghum production, available online at the Center for Sorghum Improvement. And Dr. Barry Flinchbaugh will be introduced into the National Ag Hall of Fame during ceremony coming up October 5th. That'll be at the National Ag Center Hall of Fame there in Bonner Springs. That Hall of Fame honors individuals who have made outstanding or national or international contributions to the establishment, development, advancement, and improvement of American agriculture. Flinchbaugh, a leading expert for U.S. on ag economics and policy, and for more than 4 decades, he was a top advisor to politicians in both major political parties, including the Secretaries of Agriculture and chairs of both the U.S. House and Senate Ag Committees and numerous senators, as well as several state governors. Flinchbaugh was involved in some degree in every farm bill written in the U.S. since 1968, and from 1970 to his passing in 2020, he taught Ag Policy 400 that covered trade, marketing, and politics. More information on that induction ceremony is online at aghalloffame.com. We'll have more coming up on the Kansas Ag Report.
The Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Grain Sorghum, growers working together. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail. keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. Grassandgrain.com.
And we're joined now by Robyn Reid, who is Extension farm economist. Looks like every year about this time we get a chance to talk because you present at the Farm Profit Conference.
I think every year since I've been here 9 years ago.
I think that's right. So you do an awful lot looking at kind of trends in farm real estate. What did you share? What did you learn?
Well, in general, the farm economy, has been pretty strong the last few years. We had some drought challenges, obviously, in recent history here, but really the last few years, ever since COVID, and we had large government payments and run up in commodity prices, it has really fueled our land market in agriculture to really take off. We've seen year-over-year increases of 23, 24% land value for 3 years in a row now. What we're really looking at here specifically is, where is that going? That's not sustainable in the long run. We've already seen a slowing of the growth of the land market, definitely not a decrease, but a slowing of the growth. And as we, see some challenges coming ahead in agriculture, we're really going to be watching what happens to land prices because of that.
And it seems like those values continue to jump up. In fact, we saw the USDA report come out and said Kansas, I believe, was the leader when it comes to percentage-wise, which kind of caught some of us off guard.
Well, and we were last year, too. So, what you're talking about specifically, USDA came out with a number a couple weeks ago that we were up about 16% from the number that they published in 2022. Now, you do have to understand when they do those surveys, a lot of that growth in land value probably occurred back in 2022 and then got published this year. But nevertheless, Kansas definitely leading the growth across the entire nation. Very few states had experienced a growth like we've had this past year or even the year before. So really kind of fuels my work in who is bidding on Kansas farm ground, who owns our farm ground here in Kansas, and why are we seeing that steep increase specifically here versus the other states.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about that. We may have to go to break, but let's talk about that. Then what has there been a shift? I know at one time there was a lot of outside investors, but we're still seeing a lot of basically farmers buying this. Is that right? Yeah,
and I've had a unique look to see, where are landowners located. And back in 2015, when I first looked at the data here, it was 84.5% of our ag ground here in Kansas was owned by people still living in Kansas. As we fast forward that just 7 years to 2022, it hasn't dropped very much. We've saw maybe a 1% decrease in the amount of land here in Kansas that's owned, but that does, it translates to a little over 620,000 acres that were changing hands and not owned here in Kansas anymore. I should say some of that is just inheritance, though. As we look at our baby boomer generation retiring, a lot of that inherited ground may not be in Kansas anymore, as that next generation is not on the farm. So
interesting. We're talking with Robyn Reid, who is Extension farm economist, talking about kind of land trends in the state, a little bit about who owns it. We'll continue this conversation in just a moment.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Livestock Association, supporting members' business interests and meeting consumer demands. KLA.org. Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Buy them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future at kansascorn.com.
And Robyn Reid, who is a farm extension economist, joining us. And we're talking about kind of land trends here in the state of Kansas. When we went to break, we talked about who's owning the land. And so let's get into, you talked maybe generational change, inheritance, or looking at investments. Kansas seems to be a fairly safe place. But as you dig a little deeper about, who owns the land in the state, or if they're out of state, what is a particular maybe area or type of then investor, if you will?
So yeah, the interesting thing is I looked at where geographically are landowners located that own Kansas farm ground. Kansas, like I said, the biggest, 84% or so. I would expect the bordering states to own more farm ground than after our Kansas landowners. And interestingly, Texas came up number 2 as if it's not owned in Kansas, Texas was the number 2 place where our landowners lived that owns Kansas farm ground. And then you had our 4 bordering states, and then California and Arizona and some of those places. Every time I talked about that, the other issue that came up was, well, how many of those landowners are not even in the United States? This is something that's obviously made headlines across the nation in the past year as we've had political conflicts, obviously overseas. So another part of what I was studying, there's a national report that comes out that'll tell you even down to the county level what foreign holdings are within your state or your county. And what that national report did not differentiate out was long-term energy leases. So according to the act that requires the disclosure of the lease or the purchase, anything over 10 years has to be reported if it's a lease. Well, all of our wind energy leases across the state, which have been growing, phenomenally in the good or bad, been growing very quickly in the last few years, are getting captured in that. So what we're seeing of the national report, when we were able to get the information, the raw data, and look at it, 94% of those is 1.1 million acres across our state that were reported as foreign held are actually wind energy company leases. It's just less than 67,000 acres across our state that are actually owned by a foreign individual or a foreign company. So very small relative to all of the acres in our state, but it's definitely been of interest here lately.
It has, and I think Kansas State was one of the early ones that you and the department really did a kind of a deep dive, utilizing first the USDA data and then some of the other things you were able to kind of gather. I know other folks were kind of wanting that data. You picked up on it. It's an issue probably that won't go away until some of those are solved, but that's probably one of the things, the leases, and I know there's been a lot of talk from the federal level of how do you define all that and so on. So, all right, anything else from a broad spectrum as we look, say, moving forward, that any trends that we need to be aware of as we look at Kansas farmland?
Well, my advice would be just everybody producer-wise tends to watch their local land markets. And we do know that the growth has slowed down this year. A lot of that driven primarily just some uncertainty going forward in net farm income or profitability in the ag sector. We do have some concerns with our wheat exports and prices and the very large harvest of Brazil corn and some of our export markets there. So, my advice would be just, I don't see our land markets going down. I think we'll start growing at a slower pace, which to me needed to happen. There's nothing sustainable about 23-24% increases in land value year over year. So my thing is there are young producers out there. Hopefully there will be some opportunities coming to make a land purchase. That has been really hard to do as fast as this land market's moving. So.
Can folks find more information about some of these studies that you've been doing? Where's the best way to find it?
Absolutely. If you go on our website, agmanager.info, that's agmanager.info, there is a section on land and leasing, and you will see a lot of my published information there, including a book that I put out every year with county level land values. That's something that a lot of producers and landowners like to find every year. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Robyn Reid, who is Extension Farm Economist, joining us. We've been talking about land trends here in the state of Kansas. Stay with us. We'll have more coming up in just a moment.
Premier Farm and Home has what you need to make your lawn the best in the neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Ken. We choose Premier Farm and Home for the professional look that we do ourselves.
feel free to stop in. You can also visit our website at heycow.com.
Natural disasters and other emergencies have affected communities in Kansas this year and every year. During any disaster situation, the Emergency Management Program at the Kansas Department of Agriculture is focused on the potential impact to the state's agricultural industry and, in turn, the state's food supply and economic stability. September is Emergency Preparedness Month in Kansas, and KDA has supported the Kansas Division of Emergency Management and other emergency management response organizations in educational events and other reminders about the importance of disaster emergency readiness, like Kansas Preparedness Day at the State Fair earlier this month. Emergency management means preparation for disasters, as well as management throughout the event to mitigate impacts. Programs across KDA, from animal health to food safety to plant health, work to ensure the security and protection of the food and agriculture sector in Kansas. And that includes regular training activities and exercising our agency's response to various potential emergency events, from agriculture-specific events like foreign animal disease to statewide incidents in which agriculture would play a role, like wildfires or other weather-related emergencies. The KDA Incident Management Team consists of veterinarians, food safety inspectors, laboratory personnel, administrative professionals, plant pathologists, and a wide variety of other titles spread across the agency. Team members have taken advanced all hazards incident management systems training, and many have taken position-specific training. Kansans can all participate in these efforts to prepare our state for potential emergencies, like preparing our own homes, farms, or businesses for potential disasters. You can find great information at prepforagthreats.org, and you can learn more about emergency management at the Kansas Department of Agriculture at agriculture.ks.gov/emergency management.
What if U.S. soybean meal were more than a commodity? If seed companies and the soybean checkoff built a better variety? That future is here. The time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is investing in the compositional quality of soybeans, including meal. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the soybean checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
It is that time of year again, and I am not talking about harvest. The Kansas Soybean Commission announces its request for proposals process is open and invites researchers and organizations to submit their project proposals to request checkoff funding. As in previous years, the farmer-led board is seeking projects that support the checkoff's goal to grow soybean demand and productivity here and abroad through crop breeding, crop production, animal and human nutrition, and market development. Commissioners have also identified a new priority for the coming years: water. Projects in this priority area may analyze water management, water use efficiency, climate resilience during plant growth, or other climate topics related to moisture. Details about the submission process are expected to be sent to universities and collaborating organizations mid-September. Information is also available on the Kansas Soybean website at www.kansassoybeans.org. The RFP submission deadline is Wednesday, October 18, 2023. Following this deadline, proposals are analyzed by the board with the support of KSC's research consultant. Select project leads are invited to elaborate upon their projects before the commission at the December 14th through 16th meeting. Projects determined to be complementary to the funding priorities are selected for the 2025 fiscal year, which begins July 1st, 2024. There is a broad scope of project possibilities commissioners may consider. In recent years, farmer checkoff dollars in Kansas have helped secure a $1 million NASA grant at KU to develop a next-generation solid-state battery containing carbonized soybean hulls and entice national pet food companies to partner on research into the nutrition and palatability of soy in pet foods. Investments in agronomic research projects have brought new seed technology to market, created resources and tools for farmers to use in their own crop management, and uncovered vital information about soil quality and yield robbers. The request for proposal process is yet another way for the Kansas Soybean Commission to ensure progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Hi everyone, Maddie Meyer here with the Kansas Grain Sorghum Update. Starting off with the crop progress report from the USDA, a majority of the sorghum crop remains in good condition. Currently, 63% of the crop has headed out compared to 50% last year. The total harvest is projected to be at over 3 million acres, up 13% from last year. Yields are forecasted to be at 73 bushels an acre compared to 2022's 34 bushels. This month, we've really hit the ground running across the state of Kansas, connecting with our growers, leaders, and industry partners. We attended the High Plains Journal Sorghum U Wheat U in Wichita, where our very own Kansas Grain Sorghum Producers Association President Kent Winter and Kansas Grain Sorghum Commission Chairman Brent Peterson joined wheat farmers Michael Peters and Brent Olek for a farmer panel where they discussed farm policy, management practices, and more. We also heard a lunchtime keynote from KWCH Chief Meteorologist Ross Jansen, and the afternoon rounded out with multiple breakout sessions focused on soil health, market outlooks, and pest management. Kansas Grain Sorghum leaders also attended the Flickner Innovation Farms Field Day event over in Mound Ridge. The Flickner farm utilizes technology that will allow for more sustainable practices, and this field day really highlighted these items. Attendees were able to see equipment demonstrations as well as hear reports from K-State research and extension specialists and graduate students. We look forward to visiting Manhattan soon to host our very own Commission Budget Board meetings held on September 1st at the Kansas Department of Agriculture. Thank you, and stay tuned for next time.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns, and how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil.
The Farm Service Agency has updated the Livestock Indemnity Program payment rate. The new rate for beef calves weighing more than 800 pounds will increase from $1,244 per head to $1,618, a difference of $374. This change is effective immediately and will be applied retroactively starting January 1st of this year for all eligible causes of loss, including excessive heat, tornado, winter storms, and other qualifying adverse weather. Payment rates for other categories include bulls at $1,512, cows at $1,163, calves less than 400 pounds at $540, and calves 400 pounds to 799 pounds, $746. LIP provides benefits to livestock owners and some contract growers for deaths exceeding normal mortality from eligible adverse weather events, certain predation losses, and reduced sale prices due to injury from any eligible loss. Indemnity payments are made at a rate of 75% of the prior year's average fair market value of the livestock. Producers who already have received LIP payments for 2023 losses will receive an additional payment, if applicable, commensurate with this updated rate. For details on eligibility and payment rates, call your local FSA office. As an annual update of LIP payment rates does not account for the volatile nature of livestock markets, FSA is exploring ways to establish more current rates. KLA is working with the agency on this issue so that producers who have experienced qualifying losses receive a payment rate that more closely matches the actual value of the cattle at the time of the loss.
Hello and welcome. This is Tanner Burning with Pinion Risk Management. As we turn the calendar over into September and transition into fall, we can't help but see the stress of crops brought on by heat and drier conditions from summer's final month. It is time to address the overall state of the U.S. corn and soybean crop, and we'll see several agencies and scouts giving their estimates over the next month before harvest begins in the Midwest. One of the more followed tours held by Pro Farmer came to their conclusions this week after scouting across 7 states gathering data. Their yield estimates came as 172.0 bushel per acre on corn, 49 bushel per acre on soybeans for 2023-2024 production. In comparison, this is lower to the USDA's August WASDE report, which estimated 175.1 and 50.9 bushel per acre, respectively. With weekly crop conditions declining in the August heat, one would expect the USDA estimate to be reduced. This is something the trade will get to think over and position for in preparation for the September WASDE report Tuesday, September 12th. Meanwhile, prices for December corn futures have settled underneath $5 support, and November beans have held in a firm trading range, testing $14. While the supply side debate pushes on, the U.S. has seen consistent demand for soybeans in our normal marketing time window before it shifts solely back to South America. Meanwhile, in corn, Mexico has been our only buyer for 4 months. The U.S. looks to ramp up sales into the export market going into harvest as our prices become more competitive on the global market. Corn cash basis is beginning to crater as we converge onto the new crop contract, signaling that most cash buyers have their needs met and nearby stocks are good enough to get by with the lacking of demand through the summer. Gradual basis declines through the summer really ramped up as we've seen 50 to 80 cent moves lower in cash basis just this week. For producers of milo, there has been talk of an export program forming with the hope to firm cash basis levels by harvest. When it comes to following day-to-day moves in the ever-changing agricultural markets, we at Pinion Risk Management look to be a trusted source of information for our clients, along with a guiding hand on decision-making and reasoning for a market plan. To learn more about our approach to risk management, please give us a call at 888-452-8751. I'm Tanner Burning with Pinion, and thank you for your time.
That's our show. Be social with us online, kansasagreport.net, or our social media channels. I'm Ken Rogers. Thanks you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week on the Kansas Ag Report.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.